Welcome to the latest episode of First Word in Sport. How are you on this Friday morning, James?
Good, thank you. Just looking up the definition of bottling a title at the moment, considering what happened in the week regarding Arsenal Football Club, or we called them Set Piece Football Club. You called them the Unwatchables, and now I think everyone's calling them the Bottling Football Club.
Pretty interesting title race we have now, James.
It's on. It's definitely on the title race. And I actually don't think, Aston Villa are out of this title race either. If they get their act together and stop losing silly games at home, then they would have been right in it.
If we hadn't had those injuries, James, it could have been interesting. Although I did see someone say the other day that if Villa win every game from here on in, and I think City have one draw, it will go down to Villa City at the Etihad, and you could find, if when Villa win that, they could win the title, having never led the race all season.
Yeah,
All jokes aside, that fixture does loom large. Man City versus Aston Villa, last game of the season. We touched on it months ago as it looking quite interesting, and when you look at the two sets of fixtures, if this is close, Villa potentially play Europa League final on that Wednesday before. If they're not fighting for a top 5 place, if it's already secured, get those kids out, and who knows? It won't be pretty for Arsenal.
yeah. Looking at the Arsenal last 3 fixtures, they play Burnley, West Ham, as well. So they've got quite a hard fixture. They've got obviously Man City on the 18th of April as well, and they've got Tottenham this Sunday, and they've got Chelsea next Saturday as well. So their next 2 games, Arsenal, 2 London derbies. Not the time to be doing their performances that's happened in the last 2 Premier League games. The Wigan game's absolutely irrelevant because that means absolutely nothing, kind of thing. But their performance on Thursday night the second half performance was absolutely shocking, really.
Okay, so let's just go back, so almost start from the beginning again regarding Thursday evening. 2-0 up against Wolves, firmly rooted at the bottom of the table, on course at the time for potentially one of the worst ever seasons by a team. Arsenal go 2-0 up, end up drawing 2-2, and we've touched on Arsenal many times in saying that they're not that impressive, and a lot of the time thinking that they would win the title almost through default, because I don't think the opposition's particularly great. Man City aren't brilliant, Liverpool obviously aren't brilliant this season, Villa aren't going to be winning league titles, and what we've seen with Arsenal a little bit is that their lack of creativity outside of set pieces, it really comes home to roost in games like this. This game should have been out of sight. You can't be. I think there was a stat I saw that was, this is the first time a team has been 2-0 up and lost to a team in the relegation zone.
Well, they drew, but it was the first time.
Basically, let go of that lead. So blown that lead.
Yeah, I mean, so Arsenal at the moment can get a maximum. They've got 11 games left. They've got 58 points. They've got 11 games left. They can get 91 points. They're actually on course for 82-point season, which would win the Premier League twice in the last 25 years. So all that nonsense about 4 or 6 weeks ago when they said they could have beaten that Man United team with Rooney, Tevez, Ronaldo, etc. And Rooney came out and said we'd have wiped the floor with him. Of course they would. This Arsenal side aren't very good. They're just beating a very poor Premier League at the moment where a lot of teams are ordinary. They're not that good. And the problem stems from the manager, or the head coach, whatever you want to describe it. He is the manager, actually, at the club. Where he panics. And every time he panics, the players panic. Look him on the touchline. He's constantly waving his arms, doing everything. He's not calm at all. And it transpires that the players aren't calm. Second half performance there, they had less than 50% of the ball. They're not playing Real Madrid. They're not playing Barcelona. They're not playing Man City. They're not playing Liverpool back in the day on the clock. They're playing Wolverhampton Wanderers, who've got 10 points in the Premier League. And that was their 10th point in the Premier League, who've won one game all season out of 27, and they had less than 50% of the ball in the second half. What are you doing, lads? Get hold of the ball. Declan Rice, Martin Zubimendi, get hold of the ball and don't let Wolves have the ball. Control the game, see the game out. They went 2-0 up. Thankfully, VAR is obviously working in the Premier League because Hincapie's goal wouldn't have been given because he was given offside. It's a brilliant finish, by the way, from a left back. It's a great ball.
Run.
It's a brilliant run. It's a brilliant pass from Gabriel. That goal's understated because of obviously the result. It's a brilliant, brilliant goal. And then you touched on it in the last couple of weeks. When you sit back, obviously the goal happens straight away. But a worldie from Bruno kind of thing. Oh, not Bruno, sorry. Bueno, sorry, excuse me. And that goal changes the course of the game. It's a brilliant goal from Raya, who has obviously an issue, by the way, of... not an issue, but the stats show he's conceding far too many goals from outside the box. And then the panic sets in, completely the panic sets in. Obviously, then the time wasting happens. You know, the corner when it should take a minute and a half to take, as Wolverhampton on their TikTok account showed yesterday, which was quite entertaining. A little bit poor, but I can understand why they've done it. And then the incident with Trossard and the concussion. So I've talked about it a couple of months ago. Football has a massive, massive issue with concussion and the way it's administrated and the way it's thought about and what happens. So arguably the player should have been...
Let's just go back a little bit and try and sort of break it down, in stages. So in terms of Arteta, you touched on it we touched on it months and months ago as to how, you touched on how panicky he seems. We talked months and months ago about how, in terms of emotional, he seems to be and has been. He tends to have very, high highs, very low lows in games which shouldn't be as important to him as they are. Everything seems to be such a big occasion for him, and I do think over the course of a season it gets so mentally draining that if you have 38 cup finals effectively in the league, it's very difficult when you get to latter stages of the season to not be fatigued as much mentally as physically. And I do think this Arsenal, and it sort of radiates into the fans as well. I don't think the Arsenal fans are helping their team in the slightest. They are. I know it's been a long time since they've won titles, but they've been nervous and panicky for months now. When they've been in great positions, it's just slightly odd behaviour.
Still 11 games to go, and they've been panicking since the beginning of January, like 5 weeks ago, when they were panicking against...
No, they've been panicking way before that. They've been panicking since... I remember when Villa played them twice in December. They were panicking long before then. They've been panicking for... It's been a very long campaign for them, sort of emotionally. And I do wonder, as we get through these next few weeks, if that's really going to take its toll on these players. Because you saw the reaction from Jesus at the end. I know he has history with Mosquera before, but you can't be losing your head like that in those situations.
Yep, and that's just pressure at the highest level when it means so much to them, and the pressure has come from the manager, has been like, oh, we need to win this, we're in a great position, and they've run up 3 times in a row, etc., etc. They just need to calm down and just take relax, but they can't do it. They seem unable to do it. Onto the game quickly before... I'll go back to concussion, because it winds me up with concussion. I've had it a couple of times when I was not in football, but in rugby. And it's a nasty experience, but football is light years behind other sports in terms of how concussion works. And it winds me up no end. And fair play to the Arsenal doctor, actually said excuse me for the background noise there, that he took Trossard off. And he'd been whacked, by the way, and I'm surprised VAR didn't actually look at it, the incident. Maybe they did, I didn't hear the commentary, but that was a nasty incident, what happened. Now, he was concussed, took him off, and they brought Calafiori on as a concussion sub. But we have no idea if he was concussed or not. He didn't do a test like they do in Rugby Union or Rugby League when they go off and do an HIA, which is a head injury assessment, and then they've got 10-15 minutes to make a decision. So he's taken off, Calafiori came on. That was nearly 4 minutes of injury time. We have no idea how long they played afterwards anyway. So that winds me up. But fair play to the Arsenal doctor that he actually took them off. We've got to give them some respect to that. But Arsenal are time wasting completely. I can kind of understand that you're 2-1 up and you want a time waste, a corner. But then to concede there, and that was just, I actually think it was Gabriel's fault, by the way. I think watch when Gabriel, he's got no way of getting the ball out of the box. He's backpedaling. He can't head the ball that far because of his momentum going backwards. Raya's clearly come out and shouted at him, claimed the ball. Gabriel's panicked. He was poor on Thursday night. Saliba was even worse. They lost so many duels, so many headers. They didn't pick up the second balls in the second half. It was a poor performance from the two best centre-backs in the Premier League, apparently. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. We'll come on to centre-backs and the debate. Well, it's not a debate about Virgil. But anyway. And then it's a great finish from the young lad. Obviously, he strikes it well and Calafiori in off the post and back onto him. But yeah, the reaction at the end showed everything about it. The pressure and not being able to deal with it, to me. And Jesus is a lucky boy, by the way. That's a red card and should be banned for 3 games. If that was happened anywhere else before the end of the game, he gets banned, he gets sent off for that, in my view.
So I think what was interesting for me, and it's something which we have seen from Arteta teams before, is the concept of just going super negative. So it sort of was highlighted in that sort of 89th, 90th minute when they got a corner and Rice went over to take it. He was arguing with Eze. I think originally I thought it might be relating to, obviously Arsenal normally take in-swinging corners. Rice, obviously right-footed from that side, wouldn't make much sense. It would make more sense for Eze. They ended up taking it short, absolutely butchered it. But I think it just sent the wrong message, and I think we saw that throughout the second half. I do think sport's far more psychological than people give it credit for at times. That gave Wolves confidence that Arsenal are the best set piece taking team in the league, and instead of going there, creating another good opportunity to score, finish the game off, they went super negative. And what I don't know quite is whether that comes from Arteta or whether that is the player's own doing. It's not always quite as simple as just saying, oh, that's on the manager. But it sends just the wrong message, and it almost lifted Wolves. And ultimately, they paid the price. And if nothing else, what it does, it also sends a terrible message to the fans, the media, everyone else watching that game, that this is an Arsenal team that looks scared to go and actually win this title. They are the best team in this league. I'm absolutely convinced. They've got the best squad. There's no excuses for this Arsenal team not to win this title. But they're playing not to lose. And we've seen that so many times with Arteta in the last 4 or 5 years. And if they don't win this title, fingers have to be pointed at him.
Yeah, 100%. And also, they've got no one in that squad who's won anything. They've got no experience of no understanding of how to win the league. When Liverpool won it last year, they had players who'd already won it. The Virgils, the Addisons, the Robertsons, the Salahs, etc. They know what it took to win the Premier League and how to deal with pressure.
Declan Rice has won the Conference League, James.
Could be the only trophy he wins in his career. However, I doubt it, but they've not actually, they've not won anything. They don't have the experience of having how to manage pressure and how to understand to get through games like that when Liverpool, when they last year, they were winning games by the odd goal here or there, weren't impressive, but they got across the line, and I maintain it's because they had senior players who understood how to win the game. City back in the day never won games all the time, blew teams away at times. They won games playing badly because they knew how to win games and what it took to get over the line. This Arsenal team doesn't have any experience of winning titles, and it plays a huge part in it.
I think it stems from Arteta. I mean, if you look at where Arteta's sort of rise to prominence is, and it's become a far more common thing now, where you can serve under someone like Pep and then go out on your own. So he's not had to go and have a successful career before stepping into a big job. You know, he's been sort of gifted an amazing job at a very high level without having a track record of huge success of actually winning things. And obviously he won the FA Cup very early on, albeit not really his team. And since then, since he has moulded it into his team, they haven't won anything, and he isn't proven at actually winning things.
He would tell you they've won 2 charity shields or community shields friendlies, but yes, the point is they've not won anything. They don't understand how to win things as well, and it's showing.
I think the other thing is I see so much commentary about certain players, and we've touched on it before in terms of the transfer business in the summer. It isn't looking great, but I do maintain I see the likes of Eze. Eze is a brilliant footballer. And my question marks with regard to Arteta would be his inability to actually get the best out of some of these players he has in his squad.
Don't understand the Eze signing. I really don't. I think it was only because Tottenham wanted him and they went, hang on a minute here, he's an Arsenal fan back in the day, we'll have him. We've got the money to buy him. Where are you going to play him? I said you can't play him in the 10 role, just not suited, hasn't done that at Palace, and they don't trust him playing wide left. So what's the point in buying him?
He has to play wide left.
They obviously don't like him playing wide left. They prefer Martinelli or Trossard.
No, but I mean, I saw there was chat about. I've seen some chat about Trossard, and I think it actually sums it up nicely in that as a bit part player, Trossard is a very useful squad player who can come in, can do a job, can create goals, assists for a small number of games. He isn't a good enough player to be starting every game, and Martinelli is also another example of someone who just hasn't kicked on. So he came into that Arsenal team, looked like hugely exciting talent, and under Arteta, I just don't see him having sort of kicked on at all. He looks a shadow of the player that we thought he might become.
1 goal in the Premier League this season. Trossard's a good squad player that can take minutes in Champions League games that are relevant that they're going to win anyway. Carabao Cup matches and FA Cup matches. He's not a Premier League... For a team that wants to win a title, he's not a Premier League starter. But yeah, pending for Eze's thoughts, because Saka played in that 10 role, scored his first goal in 15 and then hobbled off after 75 minutes again. I saw a couple of Arsenal fans who were getting a little bit annoyed and peeved with his hobbling off when the going's getting tough and he fancies does not play for the last 15 minutes. 400 grand a week? Really?
I heard 350, James. Come on, let's not exaggerate. What did make me laugh? So I listened to the first half of that Arsenal game on the radio, but there were a couple of moments that just annoy me. So one was when Saka scored. They said something along the lines of, "Oh, that was inevitable because that's just what he does," or something like that. And they're going, "Hold on, he's hardly scored an open play goal in months, so it's not something he does regularly." And the other thing they said was, if Arsenal don't win this game, it'll be the shock of the season. And actually, just from a maths perspective, so Arsenal not winning, it wouldn't be the shock of the season or close to it. So people throw out terms very loosely, and I don't know, it just annoys me.
Same here.
So going forward, I guess this is where it gets interesting now for Arsenal. They're away at Tottenham. Tottenham with new manager, Igor Tudor, in place. That game has a very different look and feel to it now than it did even just a week ago.
Yeah, so Tudor's been there, hasn't he? He's had all week. He's going to have 6 days of training with his 11 players and the under-18s he's got there. I don't think they've got any players almost back, kind of thing. Obviously, Romero's still suspended. He's on a beach somewhere, probably in Argentina, not playing. 4-game ban, obviously, for his red card at United the other week. So, hopefully Van der Ven's fully fit and Dragerson will play. I'd imagine he'll play 4 at the back. He's just going to get the crowd and try and make Arsenal nervous. And Tottenham fans will now realise, hang on, we can stop Arsenal winning the title. I know we've got our issues at the bottom of the table, and they've got big issues at the bottom of the table after the last night was Forest result as well. I know it's only Europa League, however, they played decent football against a poor Fenerbahce side. But anyway, back to Tottenham Arsenal. That, if there is a goal, that first goal, if it goes to Tottenham, it could cause it could be really interesting, considering that's the 4:30 Sunday game, and on Saturday night, Man City play Newcastle at 8 o'clock on TNT Sports here in the UK. There would be 2 points, and we see what the media do when it's 2 points. They like to stir it up and make it this and make it that kind of thing. Could have been, they'll say, could have been 9 points, could have been 10 points. Now it's only 2. The Arsenal players will know it's obviously should only be 2. Man City should beat Newcastle, should be whatever, but Man City got to do their job to start with. What 115 is, they got to do their job to start with, because that's been 3 years now, almost to the day that they were charged, and it's still going on. It's a ridiculous indictment of the Premier League that 3 years on, they still haven't made a decision or announced the actual findings, let alone there'll be an appeal from both sides anyway. It's just absolute nonsense. But yeah, Arsenal, they can't afford to lose that. They really can't. They have. I don't mind them getting a draw, but if they lose that, the noise will be.
Yeah, but I think that we're at a stage of the season now where we're talking about winning titles, and the worry for Arsenal would be a draw there, and suddenly that gap could potentially effectively be down to nothing, and it would just ramp up the pressure. Arsenal need to pull out a couple of big performances and a couple of big results where big players stand up and be counted. And if you're going to win titles, that's the sort of thing you have to do. And I just worry for Arsenal that whether they have those players who can do that. So what it has,
their team section.
What it has is 3 Arsenal set piece goals written all over it.
Well, that's what they'll hope, won't they? They'll try and keep it tight and get their set-piece goal. And then we just don't know. I'm not a massive believer in the new manager bounce. Some people are, some people aren't. Stats don't show it majorly in either way, actually. It's probably 50-50 almost. So let's see. Tudor's got some experience of getting teams out of holes, but he's never managed in the Premier League before. So we just don't know. But Tottenham fans will be going there with going, we can stop Arsenal win a title. However, it's a 4:30 game. Everyone else had already played. You could see, Forest played Liverpool at 2 o'clock, and Tottenham might need to win because Forest have beaten Liverpool, kind of thing. So it's just a huge game in the Premier League at both ends of the table. That is on Sunday afternoon.
So let's touch on other football from midweek. We had Newcastle winning 6-1 away at Karabag. I mean, it's an incredible result for Newcastle. Incredible start to that game. They were utterly dominant. Your man, Anthony Gordon, scored 4. I mean, I was having a conversation with a friend the other day. It is beyond tiring when yes, he has scored 4 goals, but it was similar to Palmer when he had his hat-trick against Wolves a couple of weeks ago, when it's made to sound as if he scored all 4 goals from open play or a hat-trick from open play. When you throw in 2 penalties from there, it really does distort things. Let's talk about Anthony Gordon, James. I know you're an enormous fan.
Bang average. Absolutely bang. He should have had. Newcastle should have been 8-0 up at half time, by the way. He missed 2 glorious chances. He took his penalties well. He should score from penalties. He's bang average. Interesting in that game, I thought Karabag would. I mean, they were bad at Anfield, but they were just all over the place. They couldn't deal with the pace and the power. Fair play to Eddie Howe. He changed it up a little bit. Elanga's rubbish, but he's got pace and that's it. But Barnes, Gordon, and Elanga played as his front three, and Votamade played as a 10-stroke midfielder. He's got some really good technical ability for a lad who's come from German football and has come from nowhere really. He's really good. Control, his feet is brilliant, and he looked quite good in that. I don't actually know where he played, but he dropped into midfield a few times as well. Yeah, fair play to Newcastle, and that's tie over. Kieran Trippier, have a word with yourself. Absolutely have a word with yourself. Anthony Gordon is a penalty taker. The nominated penalty taker. Yeah, you're 3-0 up. The tie's not over. Anything could happen in the second half and you got the second leg. Your penalty taker is Anthony Gordon. I don't care he's got 2 already. Things like this. You go and score and make it 4-0 second penalty. Don't give it to another player for confidence because he needs a goal. Absolute horseshit, Kieran Trippier. Your penalty taker is Anthony Gordon. Fair play to Anthony Gordon. Sticks it away and sticks it on Kieran Trippier as well. Get back in your lane, Kieran Trippier. You're a right back. You have nothing to do with who takes penalties. Don't care if you're captain. You don't change your penalty taker during a game. You nominate penalty taker, start the game, game on, 4-0, thank you very much. It winds me up, that, changing penalty takers to give person a goal. Arsenal did it, gave it to Gyökeres early in the season. Never taken one since. And it was the first goal of the game. Ridiculous when he got sacked on the pitch. But Anthony Gordon is a bang average footballer at the top level.
So let's talk. I mean, the Champions League.
Rant over.
So, I mean, the Paris Saint-Germain game was actually quite an interesting one. It was one against Monaco that I actually watched live at the time. It was a very bizarre game in as much as Monaco scored with pretty much their first 2 attacks. Paris Saint-Germain had all the possession. Obviously, they missed penalties. You name it, what could have gone wrong for them in that first half pretty much did. And yet they still managed to get level and obviously 3-2. Monaco aren't a great team. Paris Saint-Germain aren't necessarily a great team either this year. I think they'll miss Donnarumma. Dembele obviously has a lot of injury issues as well. He went off again. But it's always interesting to see, obviously, one of the favourites for the tournament, to see their struggles.
Did you see the possession stats for Monaco over the course of the game?
Well, I haven't seen them, but I suspect they can't be more than about 15%.
Not far off. 18.9% they had of the ball at home in the Champions League. Quite funny.
But that was it. So Paris Saint-Germain literally dominated from the start. 2 breakaways from Monaco, 2 goals. And Monaco actually had another couple of chances from breakaways. But Paris Saint-Germain, it was just literally a case of whether they could break them down and score. And they actually, in the end, should have scored 4 or 5. They were quite wasteful at the end.
Last on that, how is Wout Faes still playing professional football, let alone in the Champions League?
Remarkable. Let's talk Europa League.
Can we quickly stay on the Champions League side? Just for a special mention for one team, Bodo Glimt, who beat Inter Milan 3-1 on Wednesday night, I believe. So in the last 3 games, Bodo Glimt have beaten the 115ers, i.e. the cheats, Man City, beat them at home comfortably. Went to Atletico Madrid, having to win. Went there, won in Madrid. And then the next game, they've beaten Inter Milan 3-1 at home. It's quite remarkable, 3 games from a team that's got 9,000 fans up in the Arctic Circle. Fair play to them. It's ridiculous. Club Brugge with Simon Mignolet in goal still. Joel Denze scored a fantastic own goal when he tried to pass it out, but passed in the bottom corner to make it 3-2 to Atletico Madrid. And guess what, lads? VAR worked again. All those people who didn't want VAR for the FA Cup, well, it worked again for Brugge's third goal to make it 3-3. So there's 34 goals across 8 games in the Champions League this week. Fun game if you're interested, fun to watch kind of thing, all those goals going in. Mad games of football. And the second legs are Tuesday and Wednesday next week, aren't they?
Yes.
And the draw's next Friday, I believe, a week today.
So, Europa League, Forest had on paper a really tricky game away at Fenerbahce. I'm always slightly puzzled by a game like this. You know, Fenerbahce have signed, spent a lot of money. You know, Turkish teams at home, they're in good form, and they just didn't turn up. It's just difficult to explain, really. And I think that's as much credit to Forest under Pereira, who, it always helps when you have a nice goal like Murillo's to open the scoring, takes a little bit of the pressure off. But that was such a dominant win by Forest. And it was actually interesting pre-match because there was a ton of money for Forest. One of the biggest betting moves I can remember this season. So the money went down and landed. It was pretty interesting. But puts Forest in great shape.
Yeah, Forest. I've just actually been watching the highlights this morning with my 2 young boys there. Watched 10 minutes highlights. What a header, by the way, from Gibbs White for the second goal to set up Jesus at the back post. If you haven't seen it, cross comes in from Elliot Anderson from a corner, and he is on the post, the near post on the goal line, and he arches his head backwards to go over the back of his head to Jesus. Now, he doesn't know Jesus is there, obviously, but he knows he can't score. It's one of the best headers you're going to see for an assist or set up a big chance. And that goes down as an assist rather than someone who passes it, gets the last touch on the ball. It's one of the best headers I've seen in a long time not to score a goal. It's fantastic. As we said, Forest have got some good players. They have got some good players, and it doesn't look good on their previous 3 managers when they go there. And Dyche would have gone there, by the way, and set up for a 0-0 and hope for a 0-0 and be glad if they lost 1 or 2-0 against a bunch of old timers from the Premier League. Look who they had in that team for Fenerbahce. They had Kante, they had Asensio who was playing, they had Edison, the ex-Man City keeper, who was the best keeper in the world apparently for years. Horseshit again. Another stupid argument, him or Alisson. They had Kostadoglu, the ex-Leicester centre-back, who's an absolute cart horse of a footballer. Can you imagine him and Wout Faes playing together? Crumbs. No wonder Leicester were garbage and went down. But yeah, it's a fantastic result for Forest. On the other hand, do you see Celtic got absolutely thumped at home to Stuttgart? And I think Kasper Schmeichel might be looking for his P45 after his performance last night.
And then just touching on the Conference League where you had Zrinjinski against Palace. Palace put out a full-strength team. I think with the one exception, was it Mitchell? I think Mitchell was missing. Full-strength team, and that is a horrendous result. And they didn't play well. And again, it highlights some of the problems you have with a Glasner team, in that when teams sit back against them, don't let them hit them on the break. They struggle to break teams down.
Yeah, and there were some murmurings about I think there were 700 Palace fans who went over there. They're not happy with Glasner at all. And I understand. He's told them months ago, he told the club in October, so 4 months ago, that he wasn't signing a new contract or staying. Why is he still managing the club?
Well, clearly we've touched on this with the other managers like Frank and Amarin, and if you don't have a better alternative in the short term, why wouldn't you keep him? There isn't a better manager to get results for Palace with the players that they have. I don't think up until the summer.
Well, we heard from a viewer or a listener, didn't we? He said that Frank might want to go, but could go to Palace. Well, he's available now.
I suspect Frank wants time
off.
So
yeah,
I think Ange himself said recently that he wishes he'd taken more time out after leaving Tottenham, and I do think, you might look at Alonso at Real Madrid, it being a good decision to take a few months out, reset, recharge your batteries, as much mentally as anything else.
I don't think I really appreciated that at all. How managers do need to take some time out, spend time with their friends and their family, and just relax. They've been in football all their lives essentially. It's all encompassing. It's not like the players who can come in and just do 2 hours here or there, go home. They have to look at everything they're looking at.
Yeah, so if you think about Frank and his time at Tottenham, he will have been working ridiculous hours to try and fix those issues. And, to stop that and walk straight into another job, it just doesn't make any sense. So, other football, James?
Yeah, so just in the week, so in Italy, AC Milan played on Wednesday night. That's their game that they caught up because of the Winter Olympics. They drew at home to Cesc Fabregas's Como 1-1. There's a name and a manager who will be sought after in the summer. I think a few clubs will be interested in Fabregas. Will definitely be talking about it. Liverpool have talked to Cesc Fabregas in recent weeks, and he was saying, apparently the rumour goes that he wants to see out his season at Como. So they are now 7 points behind Inter. So Inter got 61, AC 54, Napoli 50. This weekend, quickly, you've got Lecce play Inter tomorrow, 5 o'clock. Atalanta play Napoli and AC play Parma on Sunday at 5 o'clock. In Spain, Madrid obviously won last weekend, and Barcelona lost on Monday night to Girona in a quite acrimonious game at the end. Yamal missed a penalty. So now Madrid are top with 60. Barca have got 58. This weekend, Madrid are Osasuna on Saturday, 5:30 tomorrow. And Barcelona at home to Levante on Sunday at 3:15 UK time. In Germany, Bayern Munich will play Frankfurt tomorrow afternoon, 2:30 UK time. Probably another 5 or 6 goals. Frankfurt can't defend, and Kane needs more goals, and Diaz needs more goals. In the Scottish Premiership, we also had last weekend was quite a change up in the league with Celtic last minute winners and Rangers beating Hearts. So Hearts tomorrow are home to Falkirk, Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock. And then on Sunday, Livingston are home to Rangers at 3 and Celtic play Hibs at 3. And one thing from the Scottish football this week, did you see Aberdeen versus Motherwell in the Scottish Cup? I didn't see it live. I saw people shouting and screaming to me, and I saw a clip from John McGinn's Twitter page saying what a disgrace VAR was. So we have to talk about VAR on this pod because we haven't talked about it yet in the Premier League. So there's 3 red cards in the game, but Motherwell's second red card, the player goes through, he's on the halfway line, he gets fouled, the referee gives a yellow card for the foul. He gets called over to the monitor saying it's denied of a goal scoring opportunity. He's 5 yards into the Aberdeen half. There's minimum two players getting back. The referee goes over, comes back about 5 minutes later, decides to send the player off. I mean, I don't understand how a referee, a VAR, and assistant VAR, 3 individuals who supposedly are qualified, can make that decision. It puts in, as the decisions you've seen elsewhere in the recent months, pale into insignificance. This is the worst one I've ever seen. It's just, go and watch it. It's just hilarious. If you're in the UK, you can watch on the BBC website on iPlayer. It's generally hilarious. And when you get a player complaining like John McGinn, or obviously watching it, it's funny. Quickly, in the Championship, there was a managerial appointment. Leicester appointed Gary Rowett, the former player and former centre-back, right back till the end of the season, and they have they've appealed their 6 points. They got 6 points taken off them, so they've appealed that decision. Don't know when that appeal will be heard. Tonight you've got Blackburn.
I heard they want that appeal done obviously before the end of the season. I think what was interesting about the appeal was just that the Premier League have appealed it as well. So they want the punishment to be harder than the 6 points. So it's a dangerous game that Leicester are playing with regard to that. It's a lot of the evidence isn't in their favour. I think would be fair to say. It'd be as much as anything if they can get away with it on technicalities and things like that. But dangerous game.
One to keep an eye on there, they could get an extra 3 or 4 points then by the sounds of that.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, let's wait and see. But it seems a bit of a strange one for them to be appealing. They'd have been better off, I think, drawing a line under it and moving on.
Yeah, so tonight you've got a local derby, Blackburn-Preston, tonight, 8 o'clock UK time. Tomorrow afternoon you've got Middlesbrough, who are second to play at home to Oxford. West Brom play Coventry in a local West Midlands derby tomorrow at 12:30 UK time. And Millwall are home to Portsmouth tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock. So at the moment, Coventry lead the way with 62, Middlesbrough 61 and Millwall are 56. In France, you've got Lens who are top. They play Monaco on Saturday tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock. PSG at home to Metz on Saturday evening, 8 o'clock, because the second leg of the Champions League is next Tuesday between PSG and Monaco. Marseille appointed a new manager replacing Roberto De Zerbi. Habib Bailly, who you might remember, Luke, who played for Doncaster Rovers, Newcastle and Aston Villa.
I always remember he was on about £40,000 a week when that was a lot of money. Absolute toilet.
So he only got sacked as Rennes manager about 8 or 9 days ago. So he's the new manager of Marseille down in France. But yeah, so that's PSG will need to win tomorrow night to beat Metz at home. But that's a roundup of European stroke Championship football.
So just quickly before we look at Premier League coming up this weekend, I know obviously one of the big stories of the week, and obviously have to be a little bit careful in terms of what is said, was the incident involving Vinicius and a Benfica player in terms of racism. It really put a real stain on football when you have these types of incidents. It doesn't. So many people haven't come out of that situation well, and it's difficult. It's difficult to say much really with regard to it, except that I just find in this sort of day and age that people are, like Mourinho, for example, suggesting that Vini deserved it, or he was a contributing factor in it. It just seems crazy to me.
Some of the comments by individuals that should know better have been downright shocking. The comment by Jose Mourinho to say that, as you say, he deserved it because of the way he celebrated. And Vini, it's a heck of a good goal, by the way. Like, it's not being talked about. It's an unbelievable finish by by the player, sticking at the top corner. He has every right to go and celebrate a goal like that. A big goal. He's been abused all the time during the game. You look at it, it's not just when he went to go and celebrate. They're chucking bottles at him, all kinds of nonsense, all kinds of racism to him. Everyone else seems to be racially abusing Vini. And it's not just the players, it's not just the fans. Even La Liga has said some horrible things in the last couple of years to him. It's just an absolute disgrace. And football does not take it seriously enough. There's no reason why, if this is being proven guilty of what the player said, or what, even forget the player for a moment, because we don't know what's been said. And it's one word against another word. And I see Real Madrid yesterday's given all the evidence to this. Benfica have done their own thing, saying Mbappe couldn't have heard because he was this far away, and it's tit for tat, and they're trying to protect each other. I understand. So until we know the full facts, we can't really comment about what was said. There's only two people in the world that know what was said: the Benfica lad and Vini Jr. So until we know, we have to be very careful what he said. However, if it is proven to be guilty, then he needs arguably a year ban minimum. But the fans, by the way, so they're racially abusing Vini, chucking stuff at him during the game, making all kinds of comments. Benfica players have got black players of colour as well. How do they feel? The only way to do it is ban the football club from this season's Champions League and next season's whatever competition they're in. These fines, these minuscule fines of £10,000 or £15,000, you get fined more for not registering a player properly or not having a sponsor at the right dimensions on the pitch because it's not this or it's Heineken 00 or something. Football does not take racism seriously. Until you start banning football clubs from competitions, it will continue to happen.
Banning football clubs for the behaviour of individual fans, it becomes very difficult in terms of, you can have rival fans in there and all sorts. It's always been very, very tricky in terms of when you're banning clubs. I think Rossignol, what he was saying in terms of fans being given life bans if they're found guilty of racism, that type of thing is the way forward.
Why shouldn't a player then? What's the difference?
Well, I think the difference in this situation is simply that we've no idea. We can speculate, right? We can speculate that there's looks from the footage and the fact that he had his shirt over his mouth and the way Vini reacted. You would say it seems highly likely that something inappropriate was said, but there is no evidence unless that's caught actually, on audio. Then, we're not gonna know, right, what was said. And as you say, it is just sort of conjecture at this point. Is if someone is found guilty. So I mean, obviously you have to look at the there's that situation with that Burnley player as well recently, where he got a pretty decent. I can't remember how many game ban he got in the end. But it was maybe 10, 12 games or something like that. The players should face very serious consequences if they're found guilty and proven of racism. But I think certainly for fans, there's no reason why life bans from the ground shouldn't be a fitting punishment. But they also should. Okay, if you're not going to ban a club and it's very hard, I get the point. Then say to them, you can't play for 6 games at your home ground then, or do something a punishment that's suitable to the crime. Because at the moment, there's 10 grand or not. It's absolutely irrelevant then. Just do something that's stopping fans doing it. I know you said you get infiltration. No, but one of the
of other fans
is just different cultures. So, in certain cultures, racism is, I'm not saying it's part of their culture, but it just isn't nearly as big a deal to them as it might be to us. And I thought there was quite a funny, not funny, but there was an interesting clip with Steve Strickland, the UFC fighter, this week, when he was talking about Bad Bunny, and Dana White was basically saying, look, he's free to say whatever he wants. He was obviously, very insulting, but people do have a right, essentially, to say what they want within reason. And different cultures have different beliefs, and it's very difficult for us to, just because we find it incredibly offensive, to sort of impose that will on others. But I do think they have to make sure that they clamp down, if proven guilty, on these things.
100%. The punishment doesn't fit the crime at the moment.
So I know you're desperate to talk about John Terry being a better defender than Virgil van Dijk. There's obviously lots of chat in social media this week. All the stats point to John Terry being, John Terry himself put together a little video telling us just how much better than Virgil van Dijk he was. I know, James, as a Liverpool fan, it's tough for you to say it and admit it, that John Terry was the better defender, right?
Absolutely. So he used his stat of I've scored the most amount of goals. Well, yeah, because he played more games in the Premier League, John. It's John Terry who scored 1 goal every 12 games. It's the same as Virgil, 1 goal every 12 games. Clean sheets. So that's a team stat. So he mentioned all this business. So before I come on to it. So player A has 187 Premier League goals. I saw a stat from a chap on Anfield Index, actually. Dave Hendrick. Very knowledgeable. Player A has 187 Premier League goals. Player B has 175 Premier League goals. Player A has 5 Premier League titles and player B has 2 Premier League titles. So John Terry is telling everyone on his stats that Andy Cole is a better player than Thierry Henry. It's complete nonsense. If you talk about it,
trophies themselves is I'm not saying it's a meaningless stat, but it's not the best measure of a player.
No, but so Jamie O'Hara and Jason Cunningham, everyone's saying that John Terry's better than Virgil van Dijk. It's absolute nonsense. On what premise is he a better defender? So we're talking about aerial duels, shall we? It's talking about heading ability and aerial duels. So Terry's career started in 2001, roughly around there. So stats aren't always available because Opta started a fair few years later. So his roughly career average was about 64%. His best ever season was 72.6% in 2011-12. Virgil van Dijk's average is 77.6% average of winning duels. John Terry's best season of winning aerial duels was in that season, 2011-12. 53 he won aerial duels. This season alone, and everyone knows that Virgil van Dijk hasn't had a great season, he's 104 with 12 games to go. So aerially and heading ability, Virgil's miles ahead, right? One-on-one defending. Who are you taking, Virgil van Dijk or John Terry?
Well, obviously you're taking Virgil van Dijk.
Right, it's a pace, right? Who are you taking?
John Terry didn't.
Virgil van Dijk. Passing ability. You're taking Virgil van Dijk. On all the football metrics of defender, there's nothing out there that proves that John Terry is a better defender than Virgil van Dijk. Virgil van Dijk is the best centre-back the Premier League's ever seen. It's not even close. John Terry is closer to Michael Keane than Virgil van Dijk is. It's absolutely nonsense. The England fans or the Chelsea fans are thinking John Terry was a good defender. He spent half his time on his backside, falling over. He could only play in a low block, holding hands with Ricardo Carvalho, who was a better centre-back than him, and Ashley Cole, an all-time great left-back, with 2 defensive midfielders. He only played in a low block. When he played in the mid-block under Ancelotti, he got binned off. He had to go back to a low block. Antonio Conte came in. He binned him off after 4 games and never played more than about 25 minutes. Leadership. So we talk about leadership as people put out there and think of players, etc. Leadership. So leadership is about responsibility, about setting standards. Setting standards, John Terry. Okay, so we talk about the incident with Rio Ferdinand's brother Anton Ferdinand. You can read about it. It's all there to be read about. You got a 4-game ban. We can talk about incidents off the field with former teammates' wives and girlfriends, Wayne Bridge, etc. Leadership on and off the field. There's only one winner. I'm getting fed up. It's not a debate. A debate is when you've got 2 players who are in the same stratosphere. These 2 aren't. He was absolutely useless. And a video for you. Just go and have a look at a Twitter account. Efran Alexander. EFRAN Alexander. He's done a 5-minute clip. I think I sent it to you yesterday and a few others. It's absolutely brilliant of watching John Terry trying to defend and the amount of times he's on the floor, he's diving in, he's all over the place. It's quite hilarious. He was a half-decent defender, but massively, massively overrated. And Virgil van Dijk, people don't realise how good he is. And Liverpool as a club, by the way, don't promote how good they've had some players. They've had some all-time Premier League greats in the last 7 or 8 years. Him, Alisson, Mo Salah, it's been ridiculous how good they are. Even Trent Alexander-Arnold has just been 4 all-time greats.
James, tell us what you think about John Terry.
Well, we've met him a couple of times playing golf on the thing, and he was absolutely brilliant. Like, not a problem. Like, so I have met him, and it's obviously, yeah, and he's very good at golf. But yeah, he was fine, absolutely, yeah, not a problem. Chatted, played golf with him, yeah, etc. But that was quite entertaining. And the thing is, like, you got Jamie O'Hara and Jason Cunny, all this lot, who are getting paid extremely well by Talk Sport, have just basically shot down Jermaine Pennant and said, "What are you talking about? Well, come out and show some stats then. There's some stats there." It's just, anyway, that was the one talking point of the week that I had to put out there. I don't think people appreciate how good Virgil van Dijk actually is.
Let's touch on this week's Premier League fixtures quickly. A couple of interesting ones. Brentford-Brighton's interesting. You got Bloom against Benham. Obviously, they don't like each other. Two of the big names in the betting world. It's interesting. Brighton, as much as anything with Hertzler, to see it feels like he needs a positive result. I feel like that game sets up quite nicely for Brentford, actually, in terms of the way Brighton play. Important for Chelsea to beat Burnley at home. Obviously, Villa have got a big game against Leeds, actually. If in terms of that top five positions. Big game for West Ham against Bournemouth, in as much as with Forest playing Liverpool, that's potentially a chance. If West Ham could pick up a win against Bournemouth, it would throw that relegation battle wide open. We have, you touched on earlier, Man City, Newcastle, 8 o'clock Saturday evening. Newcastle have obviously been away to Karabag. I saw Eddie Howe saying how late that his players got back in earlier this week. They still have injuries. City have had a week off to prepare. What's interesting a little bit in that game is that Newcastle have got a horrendous record at Etihad under Howe. I think that's six losses in a row. I think it's something like 17-1 to City. Obviously, I've seen a few Newcastle fans take hope from the fact that City weren't great in that Carabao Cup second leg and gave Newcastle a few chances. The game was over by then. City didn't have all the big players on the pitch either, so some of that was quite meaningless. But it's a massive game for City in terms of the title race.
Yeah, on that, it'd be very. So just looking at Eddie Howe saying he got back at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, so literally you're doing no training, it's just recovery, and then travel to Manchester this afternoon because it's the 8 o'clock game. So they have got Visa's out. He's looking at shambles of a bye. Lewis Miley, who I really do like, he's got a dead leg. He's going to be out for a couple more weeks. Guimaraes is obviously out. He's back in Brazil recovering from his hamstring injury, so we've known what that is. So that's Livramento, he's out. So Sven Botman could play. Where do you reckon Joel Linton will play? Try and kick some Man City players?
I think there's a good chance. I mean, there was talk about him potentially being able to come back against Karabag. I think there must.
He did play against Karabag.
No.
He came on.
What I mean,
No.
was talking about him. He might start. He didn't start. Ramping things up. It just depends on his fitness. If he's fit to go, they will want him playing in that match, particularly on the basis that they have Karabag in midweek, where he wouldn't need to play. So, where it's tricky for Howe is getting that balance right between resting players and stuff. But you think with a dominant first leg win, he doesn't have to be so concerned about that match next Wednesday.
Yeah, sorry, they play Tuesday, but yeah, it's. I'll be interested to see who they play. Surely Gordon will play up front, and they'll try and counter-attack them and play Barnes off the left, and either play Jacob Murphy or Alanga off the right.
I would probably play Alanga and use that pace. The one thing City aren't great at is against teams in sort of transitions and pace. So.
Yeah, and will City play that formation again, where they play the split strikers, and they play Haaland and Semenyo as the split strikers and Foden, or they go and play back to their 4-2-3-1, or they don't play that way, but you know what I mean, they play three at the back kind of thing with ball in possession.
We obviously, you got the chat in terms of whether Newcastle might bring Botman back in and play a back five again, potentially.
Because City in the last couple of weeks have played Semenyo and Haaland as split strikers and giving some more help and pace around Haaland. And then they played
Marmoush could play that role as well.
So yeah, it'll be
interesting to see.
it's. And Nico Riley, I really do like Nico.
It's a massive game for City. Like, I mean, they've been given a lifeline in this title race that they don't really deserve. Whether they can take it, we've got Sunderland, Fulham, Palace, Wolves. Not that interesting, and then you have obviously Nottingham, Liverpool. Big game, huge game for Forest. Whether they can sort of carry on the form from the Europa League game under Pereira. It's amazing how one result can sort of change things, and I wonder if that result just gives them a bit of a boost. Liverpool results have picked up and have been to a few tricky places recently and got results, like that Sunderland result. So Liverpool have had a week off to prepare as well, and I do think, Liverpool don't get many weeks off to prepare. It's usually always the bigger clubs having less preparation time. So I do think that could be a factor in that game. Those Forest players will be a little bit fatigued relative to Liverpool.
Yeah, well, Liverpool had 3 days off because Slot gives players off during the week when he's not playing. Didn't have to play Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. All went home, whatever. Yeah, Liverpool need to win anyway, so it's no excuses for Liverpool. Need to go there and stamp their authority. Whether they do or not is you just don't know what side Liverpool turn up these days.
Those top 5 places. With Chelsea having Burnley, United are playing Everton on Monday night. Villa have got Leeds at home. Those top 5 places, suddenly there could be some pressure on Liverpool, to get a result in that game. And then obviously we have the big game, Tottenham-Arsenal, going to be fascinating to see. And then Everton, Man United on Monday night. I do like it when you have the Monday night game, I have to say. I do enjoy it. And that in itself will be an interesting game to see where, Carrick and United are at. Everton will sit back under Moyes, get Everton to try and get United to try and break them down. I think it'd be quite an interesting game.
He haven't played for 2 weeks. Near enough 2 weeks. Haven't played since that Tuesday a couple of weeks ago kind of thing. Yeah. Everton will do that. Everton just heck on jive. They're terrible at home. They're decent away kind of thing. But yeah.
So I think that's going to be interesting. I think it's a really interesting set of fixtures actually this weekend. You have certain weekends where it's a bit like, not that interesting. There's a lot of really interesting games, and obviously as we enter the final stages of the season, there's so many interesting stories, whether it be relegation, top 5, title race. They're all up for grabs. That relegation's both the relegation fight and the title race. 3 or 4 weeks ago, both were trading at sort of 1.2 shots and less. West Ham to get relegated and Arsenal to win the title. So with those both back in play now, it certainly makes the Premier League a bit more exciting.
Yeah, and one stat for you, I'd like to give you a stat out there. It's Aston Villa's first Saturday 3 p.m. game for about 13 months. It's absolutely ridiculous. And you still can't watch it live here in the UK unless you have a ticket for it. So. Ridiculous.
Right, let's call it a day. And any questions, fire away, let us know. And any questions you can have, which will, just send James over the edge, just like a Terry Van Dijk. Bring it on.
Yeah, Virgil van Dijk. People won't realise how good a player he actually is. But yeah, any questions, please give us a shout. We'll try and do a sports podcast at some point today just to round up. If not, we'll be back on Monday to have a chat about more football and the weekend stuff and a preview of the midweek football. But if not, we'll catch up then. Enjoy your weekend of Sport League and catch up with you over the weekend. Goodbye.
Cheers. Thanks. Bye.